Welcome to Bold Talk series where creativity, leadership, ideas, innovation come together. My name is Ludvik, and today I have a privilege to have a short one-on-one conversation with David Keene, Chief Marketing Officer Europe at Wipro. David, great seeing you, my friend, and welcome to our Bold Talk series. How are you?
Really good. Thank you, Epi. Great to see you. Good to be on the Bold Talks. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been a long time, David. You were one of the first ones who joined our Bold Awards and submitting your company back then. You were working with what was the name of the company? I forgot.
I think we did a couple, I think. I think
Yeah,
it's yeah, I think we might have done SAP. I think we might have done
yeah,
Speechmatics.
SAP. Yeah, Speechmatic. Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah. But
whole bunch
this,
of cool tech companies.
yeah, absolutely. So, thank you for being part of our network and being part of our community. And this talk, I wanted to dedicate mostly around the marketing.
Cool.
Obviously, coming from a background, we both have a background in marketing, but your background is definitely it's up there, working with the larger companies and all type of different companies. So, really looking
You're
forward
too
to this
kind. You're too
conversation.
kind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, David, now you're with Wipro. For
Mhm.
people who are not aware of what Wipro does, give us an overview of Wipro and what motivated you to join Wipro.
Okay, so Wipro is 250,000 technologists implementing systems, technology for some of the biggest companies across the planet. We don't tend to name those companies, but any of those very big companies that have big IT functions, we're probably running a big chunk of those. So yeah, I joined Wipro because I'd never done in the B2B space, I'd done so many aspects of B2B. And I've never done pure services marketing. And services is kind of like the real toughest end of B2B marketing. You know, selling AI or those kind of things. It's easy to create a story and to craft a narrative and to, deliver engagement. Services are hard. Consulting is hard. That pure like putting functions in place, taking kind of organizations from point A to point B. That's a tough marketing journey. So I wanted to get a little bit of time away from marketing software, which is kind of my heartland and my home, into this pure marketing tech services thing. And it's been great. I've learned so much. It's amazing the change in the way you do marketing based on the fact that you're working on a narrow margin. The tech companies work on big margins. The
Mm.
services companies are working on narrow margins. So it's a really, really different discipline, and I love that constraint. It really kind of helps you focus, helps you build.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's also a time as well, right? And so
Yeah.
we're living a very special time. Innovation is accelerating. We're like into this exponential time effect where there's always a new shiny thing coming up, right? And so how do we
Mm.
keep that balance? And so my question is how do you balance the need for innovation? Obviously, while you're innovating, there's a risk around it. So how do you balance that with the risk of failure?
So let's take a step back maybe and think about those innovation curves that we live with every day. I think it's a good way to conceptualize how we handle this. And certainly many of my team members are, they're younger people. They haven't necessarily worked in the tech world for as long as I have. I'm feeling very old now. Um, but I mean, I started out on mainframes many years ago. This will really date me, and I'm sorry, but so I started out on IBM mainframes as a System 370 assembler programmer. Um, and actually moving from assembly language to COBOL was a big step forward. So, and that sounds really weird now saying that in 2024. But if we look at the waves that we've been through, we went through that kind of technology mainframe wave, then the mini wave, then the PC, then the internet came along, then mobile devices came along. with app stores and those kind of things. And now data science, machine learning, and AI has come along and become of age. And you can almost think of each of those as a wave that's kind of building on the previous wave. I don't think it's exponential. My take is that really each of these waves is building on what happened before. Each follows certain patterns. And you have to kind of look at this whole thing and say, okay, so data science and AI is coming through right now, and it's going to be transformational for us. But we need to look at the experience we had before. And many of the things that we engaged with before or that we thought were going to happen before didn't. So the world that we're in is unpredictable. We have to innovate, we have to test, we have to be agile. And that's the way that we figure out which types of innovation we should engage and leverage and which we shouldn't. So, yeah, it's a really exciting time now. This data science AI wave that we're going into right now is building on top of the massive compute power we've got, the power of the internet, the power of the data that's been amassed there, the the power of the kind of new languages that have come along to enable us to build those models, etc. And figuring out, we do a lot of work figuring out with companies how they're going to adopt AI. And then when you've been through that phase, how they're going to then scale AI. So if you think about the AI adoption curve, particularly in a services-based world rather than a product-based world, the first part is let's put in place a proof of concept where we look at the technology, architecture, the data we have, what we could do with it, and we start to map out, can this move the dial for our business? And if it does move the dial, what are the risks? What are the costs? And how do we do that? And then we move it into a scaling phase. And we're just starting to see some of those scaling projects really start to kick into gear and move. And interestingly, they are not necessarily in the areas that you would think they were. They're in other areas such as intelligent supply chain, logistics, kind of retail environments in terms of customer behaviors and customer tracking. So there's all sorts of quite unusual areas where AI is starting to go deep. And we see a lot of the kind of large language models that are out there and the magic that they produce. And we expect that that's the way that they'll move forward. That is magical technology. But the things that are picking up right now are not necessarily using those large language models.
Yeah.
They're in other areas. I think the other big revolution we're seeing is the use of particularly code-focused large language models to support testing, kind of code migration and code modernization, porting apps to new platforms, improving the productivity of developers. The large language models that are tuned for that are just off the scale. And I just don't think they're talked about enough in terms of the productivity gain that developers and engineers are gaining right now.
Yeah. You mentioned about transformation in the digital landscape and talk about marketing. How has the role of marketing evolved in this time and space that we're living right now?
So marketing evolves along with the offer, the customer, and then the channels that you're using. So if you think about the history that we have here around marketing, marketing was originally advertising, it was print or TV or radio or billboards or those things. And then we start to move forward into more digital channels. And obviously, email is something that's been pretty consistent for a long time right now and still delivers well.
Isn't it amazing?
Oh yeah, well, there's an interesting learning from that. So everyone kind of viewing, yeah, it's this magical new thing that's like, how long has email been here? Like a long time. What?
Ever since I knew internet,
19,
there was email for me, right?
yeah, like 86, 87 maybe. I don't know, I'm guessing here. Um, Back in the day, anyway, for all those younger people listening. So email's been with us a long time. Every day we all get up. What's the first thing we do? We open our email inbox and we start to process messages in text. So, wow. That the longevity of and the power of that technology is insane. And it's such a simple product market fit that we have there. We have the need to it. And it's really interesting when you look at when you're traveling, when you're on the metro, the subway, the tube, whatever, or a train or on a plane. Everybody's sat there. They're sat there with their phones and they're just doing kind of email. It's messaging. It's evolved slightly. It's messaging and they're messaging people. So we're using this just text to communicate in these ways. And that's still very powerful and very with us. And then the other thing that's still powerful is in-person activities, analog activities, where we're getting people together, on a weekly basis. We're running, executive round tables where people get in a room and they talk to each other. People going to conferences haven't stopped. You guys do amazing things with your in-person events. People travel and attend and they connect in person. And if you look at the world and the lens of the world, I think if you roll back to that kind of turn of the century, if you remember back to the millennium bug, etc., we were all thinking, yeah, it's going to be, self-tying shoes, it's going to be hoverboards, it's going to be back to the future, everything's going to be digital. And things have become, we've got this amazing digital technology, and then we've got this rise of the analog world as well.
Yeah.
There's another interesting angle to this that, if you look at how people dress, it's become more analog. You can go back to those kind of 1950s kind of historical points, and you see people like dressing in like suits and identikit kind of, very formal,
Yeah.
structured kind of things. You're in a t-shirt, I'm in a hoodie and a shirt. We're hanging out. We're doing it from a random location somewhere in the world. People have become a lot more casual, a lot more analog. You can also see another interesting rise. One of my theories is if you look at the rise of tattooing is really interesting. Like the amount of people that have tattoos now is insane. It's, in the past, it used to be an unusual thing for you to see. And to me, tattoos are an analog response to the digital world that we're in and the kind of the, this kind of like pixel perfect digital world back
Yeah.
down to these very crude, artworks. They are art, but still, it's not something that the digital transformation would have necessarily predicted that you go down into this, people becoming art.
Do you
And
think,
it's
yeah,
really, it's really an odd kind of,
yeah.
it feels an odd time to me.
Do you think is because we just have not been able to be immersed in this world of web? And I think, for example, when I look at, for example, I was attending Meta's developers conference. It was a week before, a week after,
Mm,
before that, 2 weeks ago, and uh, and it's amazing how the world of virtual reality has progressed.
yeah.
And it's amazing what you can do today with it and how you can bring people together in such environments. So, yes, the people meeting in a conference, and we do these also roundtables, which people love to
Mm,
meet over the dinner and have a
yeah.
discussion. But the proximity that you can get with also these new tools, this virtual reality and augmented reality, and do you think is that's what's missing, or you still think that that's not never going to replace the analog?
I never say never on these
Yeah,
things.
I
I
love
think
that.
it's still, I think there's still a product market fit question there when I look at VR and AR.
Mm,
They, as technologies, they've been with us for some time, and I've used them. I've been to some of those conferences. I've tried to sell people on them. And I guess the parallel I'd bring in here is the Internet of Things, in that, when a wave, like going back to my model of these different consecutive waves that build. So the Internet of Things came along, and everyone said, okay, you know what? Everything's going to be intelligent. My clothes are going to be intelligent. My refrigerator is going to be intelligent. My car's going to be intelligent. And we had all these demos of, here's a refrigerator that orders milk for you when you need it. No one wants that.
Yeah.
That's not a problem that really people want solving. They want to choose when they need milk. And they're like, okay, I'll call in, I'll pick up some milk on the way home. Particularly with the rise of micro supermarkets everywhere. It used to be there was a limited number of stores where you could get stuff. Now they're everywhere and you can just
Yeah.
go get them. So these intelligent devices that, we're still trying to find, a really good use for these intelligent devices. You know, they are looking for a pathway to take. And I think the most interesting example I've got of something that really has found its way is if you look at electric vehicles, which obviously is as a world we're moving towards. When your vehicle starts to move to a position of needing to be charged, one of the things that the car can now do is it can say, okay, where is the nearest available charger? And do we have an account for that charger? And then change the sat nav to route my vehicle to that charging point, charge the vehicle, and then we move on again. To me, that's intelligent, and that's a great use of that Internet of Things technology in a very complex use case that there's a real use for. You don't want to have to get on your phone and look for a charging place and navigate to it. You want the car to do that. You want the vehicle to do that. Um, when I come back to virtual reality and the metaverse in general, I think the idea of a digital twin is really interesting and has a very strong use case and a good product market fit, particularly when you're looking at complex structure. Let's say you've got a nuclear power plant or a space station or I don't know, whatever it might happen to be, and you can operate inside of that digital twin using a headset, and you can make something happen with some kind of drone or robot or whatever it might happen to be. That's really clever, and that's an amazing use case. Gaming is a strong use case, which clearly is kind of landing and working. Entertainment business, I'm not seeing it. I think the entertainment piece is a little bit like 3D glasses. We all bought 3D TVs. I have an amazing 3D TV downstairs. I never watch 3D movies ever. Like you're probably the same. It's like,
So
okay, where are the
you're one
3D
of those
glasses?
rash buyers, right? You
Yeah,
were
I'm
so
like,
excited to buy.
we've got to have one. We've got to have a 3D TV. Okay. So we all sit there with these glasses on as a family and we watch, I don't know. I'm trying to remember what it might, maybe a Disney movie or something. Um, and it's amazing. But you lose the analog connection because you've got a
Mhm.
barrier in front of you. So you're in the room and you're not interacting with the people in the same way, even the subtle body language pieces of it. And it comes back to my, you know, digital analog blend and balance really is
Mm.
kind of how I would position the world and where we're going. And I think many of these technologies become too digital, and I think VR as well. Do you want to have a headset on where you're in a virtual world where there's just nothing analog at all? And how long before you become tired in that world? I find when I use it, like it's really fun for a little
You get a
bit, and
habit.
then I'm like, dude, I need a glass of water, and yeah, I'm gonna go just like walk around outside and look at the sky. Um, Sorry,
Yeah,
I might be being a Luddite here. Maybe there's like amazing, maybe people will be kind of sending kind of challenging social media posts and stuff. But I think there is a real product market fit question here. Why have my kids not asked for a VR headset?
yeah,
They want a new Xbox. They
yeah,
don't want a VR headset. Like, so what's going on there? Like, how many of the kids actually have these things?
yeah. But and this goes back to, getting that feedback, that constant
Mm,
feedback and leveraging on it and in terms of uh, driving growth and staying competitive, you want to have that constant feedback,
yeah,
right? So how do you leverage that customer feedback? In this case, for example, you're driving services
mm.
on the B2B, and how do you leverage that customer feedback to drive
You
growth?
talk, you talk to the customers. You have to, as
So
as a
getting
marketing leader, you got to go talk to them. Sure, it can be on a video call. It's less powerful. If you can, if the customers are coming to events, spend time with the customers. Go on a sales call with a sales guy. Spend time in the room with it. Listen. Listen to, if you're in a business where there's a lot of kind of, you know, SDR or BDR phone selling, listen to the calls. Listen to what they're saying. Listen to the words they use. Listen to why they're not engaging. Particularly, as marketing leaders, we get our teams to build scripts, dialogues, assets. We then often don't listen or review how they've been used. We just build them, roll them out, then move on to the next thing we've got to build. So a lot of this is, if we look properly at agile and agile marketing, you know, we have a big backlog of things we want to do, but when we've done a sprint, we have to go in and do an after action review. What worked? And then actually down the line, a few months down the line, we need to do it again to understand how well it's working and did it
Mm.
make sense and was it a good decision?
Yeah. Yeah, that's 80% or more maybe it's communication. It's about getting that what you just said. Like it's really getting to the point where you're asking the questions,
Mm,
you're listening, right? Uh,
mm,
and a lot of time we forget to listen, and so I think that's where the missing link is. A lot of
mm.
in communication, we think it's like we just need to publicize and broadcast, but what about like
Yeah.
asking the right questions? I still remember one of my mentors. He said the quality of questions will determine the quality of outcomes.
Yeah, 100%. And also, don't listen to respond, listen to understand.
Mm,
That's something that I was always mentored on, to listen and think about what the person is saying rather than, when somebody's saying something, immediately the little voice in our head's going, okay, this is what you're going to say back. Like, it's not a game of tennis. We're trying to understand the person, understand their motives, understand who they are as a person, understand their emotions. And people buy from people. This is why, you come back to the marketing fundamentals, recommendations, reviews, case studies. We're still doing all these things.
it's human to human. That's it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it's
person to
everything.
person marketing. It's not B2B. It's person to person.
Yeah. David, so how do you stay ahead of these emerging trends and technologies? There's every single day or every single week, there's new shiny thing coming out. How do you stay ahead of the emerging trends?
I think you build, it's a little bit like exercising. You know, I read a lot. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I try and listen to diverse things as well, and things with points of view that maybe I don't agree with.
Hmm.
I think there's a big risk with us all right now of getting stuck in a bubble of things that support our worldviews. I like to listen to things that challenge my worldviews. I like to listen to things that I disagree with and then challenge myself on why do you disagree with that? I read a lot. I like books. And yeah, that's another great example of the analog thing. Where is the Kindle gone? When did you last see someone with a Kindle?
So,
Like I'm like, okay, there was a period of time,
what
maybe
happened
about
to
a
Kindle?
year, like everyone had a Kindle on the
Yeah.
tube. Like you're traveling on the tube, everyone's got a Kindle. Now, no one has a Kindle. Everyone's listening to audiobooks and podcasts, and the podcast has exploded. And the podcast is kind of an analog medium, isn't it?
Mm.
It's
Yeah.
not just the written, it's being delivered through a digital channel, but it's an analog medium.
Yeah, it's amazing and how fast I remember. I thought Kindle would be incredibly amazing because now you can just fit all the books
Yeah,
in this gadget. And I got a Kindle as a gift, and I kept using it. I said, "Oh, I like physical books, like
yeah,
this."
yeah, me
I said,
too.
forget it, and I gave it away. I never looked
Yeah,
back. So,
yeah.
but I still if I
Anyway,
would say I would still love the physical books rather than like audio. It's just something about like flipping the pages and making the notes that I'm still it's etched into my thinking the way how I read the book. So
it's relaxing
it's
as well.
personal,
It's
I
more
would
of
say.
it's an emotional thing, isn't it? You're
Yeah,
like, yeah, I like the touch, I like the feel, I like the sense of it. Um, it's a cultural thing for us all. And I think in tech, we sometimes miss out on emotion, on empathy, on, the tactile nature of things, on, the physical nature of things,
yeah,
and how much it means to people.
yeah. Completely agree. Now, David, what's your approach to failure when trying new things? Obviously, you need to, always try to figure out what's working, what doesn't work, and learn from it. What's your approach to trying new things, to failure, and how do you encourage risk taking with your team?
So if you look on the internet, there's an old TEDx talk of me, like from many years ago, about failure. So I actually did a TEDx on failure many years ago. So it's hidden in the TEDx world somewhere there. And I don't think it's changed since then. Um, I shouldn't have promoted that. People go back and look at it and say, "Oh my God,
I see.
um,
Failing to learn. It's still there.
failing to learn." Yeah, exactly. So I kind of still believe that. And to me, this is about understanding the types of failure that are out there. People think failure is one thing. It's not one thing, it's many things.
Hmm.
And you need to fail safely. Sure, if I'm flying an aeroplane, I don't want to do too much experimentation on how I fly that plane full
Yeah,
of people. I need another mechanism, which is where, a flight simulator comes in. If I'm doing something on a project and it's a safe environment, then we can be agile, we can test things. But when we test things and we test them quickly, and then we figure out if we move forward or not. I worked at Google for quite a long time and was part of the team that worked on. Do you remember Google Glass, the augmented reality
yeah,
kind of weird headset? So, like, I wandered around London with those on for weeks. And everyone just looked at me going, that's really weird. And some people would come up and say, are you spying on me? Like, do you try to take photos of me? And it was the weirdest experience, saying kind of, okay, Google, show me a map to this supermarket, and it was just this stupid thing. But it
yeah,
was really the tech was really interesting. And the
yeah,
tech then went into kind of a lot of the kind of speech recognition stuff that Google did and a lot of the kind of intelligent device things. That are in there. But that was a really interesting example. That was lashed together by a team in Mountain View really, really quickly with commodity components. And they said, is this interesting to try? It was like, yeah, let's just try it and see what happens. And Google now have that and they use it for kind of various experiments. The tech went into other things. So failing fast. You don't fail over a very long period. That's a big mistake. If you set up some huge monolithic waterfall style project, you need to be sure that's going to work. If it's a single sprint that you're working on in either marketing or product or wherever it is in your organization, then sure, you can play some experiments. You need to figure out what are the must deliver things that we can't fail on, and then which are the things that we can experiment on. And experimentation is there for us to learn. And actually, we get some of the best results from experimenting where things fail. If you think about a scientist, I mean, the traditional example is Edison. Edison inventing the light bulb tried thousands of different things before he came on a tungsten wire for an incandescent light bulb. Those experiments weren't failures, they were experiments. So some of this comes down to mindset and permission. So I give my team permission to experiment, but experiment safely.
mm,
Don't burn your entire budget on some huge mega experiment that's only got a
yeah,
10% chance of paying off. That's crazy. Little fast experiments,
yeah,
and also celebrate the experimentation and celebrate the learning. And it comes back to my kind of failing to learn. TEDx. I should go back to them and do an updated version. Um, so celebrating the things that they've learned and really, helping them feel good about the failure. Because typically people fail and think, oh, I failed, that's
Yeah.
bad, I lost. They like something not working is not a loss, it's a gain. So this is a mindset piece. This is like a growth mindset piece.
Yeah.
And you have to foster that pure growth mindset kind of philosophy in your organization and ask people, hey, what are you doing that's different? How are we pushing the boundaries here? And also the other thing that is part of my philosophy is you don't tell people what they should do, you ask them what they want to do.
Mm.
If I tell you to go try something and it fails, you'll then blame me. And you get into that like negative blame game. If I say, hey, how do you think we could test this? Like, what would you like to try? And they say, I'd really like to try this thing over here. And then you support them and help them, then that's how you get the best results from the team.
Yeah. Very well said, David. I wish we have more time, but I think
I think we're out.
we can catch up in London in a few weeks' time.
Indeed.
David, what does bold mean to you? Not bold words, as you know us for many years. What does a word bold mean to you?
Well, I associate bold with you and your community, which is really positive and good. Bold to me means willing to be who you are, willing to show up as the person that you are, willing to be genuine. And I don't think sometimes people think bold means aggressive. I don't read it as aggressive. I read it as genuine and self-aware and understanding who you are, what you're trying to do, and willing to go out there and try things and maybe fail and being
Yeah.
happy with that failure.
Very well said, and that's why the reason we say know your power. Because if you don't
Indeed.
know who you are, you don't know how much powerful you are. And
Yeah.
we all have that power. And so, David, I thank you for joining me for this Bold Talks. Congrats on all the great stuff you've been doing all these years. I'm gonna go after this. I'm gonna go watch that TEDx, and I'll give you my comments on that one. But thank you for joining me again. Looking forward to seeing you soon. Until next time, take care. Be
Thank
great.
you.
Both
Thank
of
you
you,
so
David.
much. Carry
Take
on
care.
doing the amazing work, Happy. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Cheers.